So, welcome to the Treasury Elite Leadership Series. I would like to thank all our viewers, members for supporting this noble cause of Treasury Elite, whose main objective is networking, knowledge sharing, and mentoring. Time and again, we bring in world class speakers and thought leaders across the world in the field of Treasury, global financial markets, management, and leadership, and conduct various programs, webinars, and conferences in different formats. Treasury Elite Leadership Series is one such format where we learn from industry thought leaders about their experiences of running their businesses, opportunities and challenges they encounter, and broad trends going forward in the future. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Abhishek Goenka, founder of IFA Global and Treasury Elite. We bring in world class FX and treasury practices for companies across India over the last 15 years. And today we have Ms. Mukti Hariharan. Mukti is currently a director, treasury and mergers and acquisitions, South Asia for Hindustan Unilever. She has over 16 years of treasury management, investing, M&A and capital raising experience in multiple markets across Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. She has also worked at Credit Suisse in London and in India, J. Morgan Stanley, Springboard Ventures, and KPMG. Mukti is also an active angel investor and has advised startups and across several areas such as strategy, fundraising, and growth. She's a chartered accountant rank holder and an MBA from the prestigious ISB Hyderabad, where she specialized in analytical finance and strategic marketing. Welcome, Mukti. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks, Abhishek, for such an elaborate introduction.
Great.
Doing very well. Thank you.
Glad to have you today and as a part of Treasury Elite Leadership Series. In the next 30 minutes, we'd love to hear from your experiences. So my first question to you, Mukti, is that we would love to know about your transitions across various roles and careers and progression and the three major learning that you have had over these years.
Right. So in my 16 years of across different markets, most of my experience has been on the investment bank advisory side, as you said, with Credit Suisse and Morgan Stanley, and even in my current role at HUL. I have helped corporates raise capital either by way of debt or equity, and I also advise them on buying and selling businesses. Interestingly, during the global financial crisis, I also worked with corporates on restructurings, allocation of capital, and all the tough things that they had to do at that time. I also worked for a couple of years with the venture capital outfit you mentioned, Springboard Ventures, and there I was doing early stage investments. Last few years, I've been leading treasury and M&A for Unilever in India. So on your question regarding three major learnings, the first learning has been it's almost impossible to predict the behavior of the markets, currency as well as capital markets, leave alone timing the markets. At best, you can figure out coping mechanism to deal with your exposure to the markets. So one should define risk management practices for slightly longer term and keep at them. So if you look at, say, last decade, annual depreciation of INR versus US dollar is in the range of, say, 4.5%. And if you look at hedging cost over the same period, it's also pretty similar. So let's say if your exposure over different periods was the same, then whether you hedge or not, it doesn't matter, right? So what you need to do is decide on a robust risk management strategy. And even then, if it doesn't play out in the short term, constantly follow that approach for a significant chunk of time when you're dealing with the market. The second learning is, and this is across various industries and markets, right? But the time to prepare for raising money or planning liquidity is when you don't need it. Because if you start thinking about it when you need it, you'd already be too late. So start thinking at least 10, 12, 18 months ahead of when you will actually need the money. Third and the most important lesson is a crisis is more near than you think it is. And humans have a tendency to play up risks in the short term and ignore the risks which have a slightly longer horizon. The so-called black swan events are more likely than before given the global nature of businesses. So we need to keep them in mind as we make elaborate plans. We can't, of course, plan for them as the timing is uncertain, but having thought through risks and having a contingency plan would certainly give us an edge.
Sure. That's pretty interesting. Means even I have been trying to explain that broadly. It's a 4% depreciation year on year, and there is no free lunch in financial markets. So if you have forward premium, that doesn't mean that there is a free lunch. And of course, we are living in the era of crisis. Earlier it was 10 years, and now I think it's every 5 years. And liquidity is the king, as a lot of treasurers and CFO are understanding today. So great. So Mukti, Now, you have been into treasury and actively managing treasury over a very long period of time. I would love to hear a couple of innovations from your side, which has given you a significant edge. It could be an idea, it could be a strategy, or it could be a technology across the range of treasury activities, right from FX, interest rates, fundraising, investing, etc.
Right. So good question actually. So see, we are a business focused treasury, right? I don't come from a treasury background, right? While I have a lot of investment banking experience. So, my focus when I started in HUL treasury team was to become a business focused person, right? So what we essentially do is change and adapt as per needs of the business. We partner with business on various initiatives. So, earlier this year, when we saw suppliers getting stretched for credit, we launched a dynamic early payment platform that enables suppliers to access funds early at a competitive, dynamically determined rate. Right? When we saw distributor partners requiring credit and struggling for get that, we scaled up our channel finance program with banks, where we partner with banks and fintechs and help them extend credit to our ecosystem. We also started hedging the embedded exposures, in addition to the direct exposures that we hedge, embedded exposures in the commodities that we purchase, in order to provide us greater certainty of profit and loss. And overall, across treasury and across HUL businesses, be it sales, marketing, supply chain, or finance, we have a big digital push, right? So there's this whole theme of reimagining HUL and preparing the company for, say, the next decade of leadership. So, the entire organization is committed to cutting down inefficiencies and adopting digital ways of working in, whichever process we can to bring in efficiencies. So that's been the focus for the time that I've been here.
Sure, sure. So in terms of embedded exposure, would you like to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah,
what
so
do you
certain
mean by an embedded
commodities,
exposure?
absolutely. Let me just explain. Basically, taking a step back. So, typically people will hedge exposures that you directly have in foreign currency. But suppose you don't have a direct exposure in foreign currency, but the exposure is arising because of the supplier contract that exists in foreign currency. And how will you really hedge that exposure? So actually, the RBI also allows you to hedge certain indirect exposures, wherein you directly aren't subject to exchange rate risk because your contract is a rupee denominated contract, but that rupee denominated contract has an underlying US dollar denominated risk, and that is the risk that I'm talking about that can be hedged.
Sure. Great. Any particular strategy or idea which comes into your mind, which was a major cost saving initiative for the firm?
Cost saving initiative. So, the cost saving initiatives are so inbuilt. So, if you look at, say, last few quarters of HUL, every quarter we have delivered cost savings. Every year we exceed our cost saving targets. So that's just built into the culture of the firm. Can't think of any specific treasury initiative, but all these initiatives that I'm talking about are more focused on growth rather than cutting down costs. So a lot of the digital initiatives, so to speak, are focused on increasing efficiency and reducing cost, or reducing the number of people employed, so that we can use the intellectual bandwidth of those people for certain more value added tasks.
Sure. So, Mukti, you just mentioned in the beginning of the conversation about how you perceive risk. And we very well understand that nobody can predict markets. And a combination of receivable and a revenue hedging is eminent for any large corporate treasury. Now, there have been a lot of companies who have been using concept of value at risk, use various stress testing and scenario analysis, or use some kind of an hedging program. What is your strategy, and how do you feel that other companies should adopt and change in the current situation? Is there any particular style?
Sure. So we have two major risks that we try and cover for, right? Commodities form a major part of our raw materials that are required to develop our product portfolio. And hence commodity price risk is one of the most important market risks for our company, right? So we have a robust framework and governance mechanism to ensure that organization is adequately protected from market volatility in terms of price and availability. Based on monitoring, intelligence and monitoring, we forecast commodity prices and movements and devise our cover strategy. Right? Now, a robust strategy ensures that even when the commodity prices are volatile, we are protected. So that's on commodity risk. Now, coming to foreign exchange risk, we have a policy in place where we make sure that no material risk is actually unhedged, and we don't use options. We only use forward exchange contracts to basically hedge the foreign currency risk, and the residual risk or the unhedged risk is continuously monitored, and the amount of uncovered exposure is kept under check at any given point in time. So at any given point in time, there is no materially uncovered exchange rate risk on our imports and exports, and essentially we don't do any derivative instruments for any trading, no speculations, of course. And my advice to fellow treasurers will also be pretty much the same. That is, just devise an effective policy for your business based on sufficient data points of the past. Make sure you aren't overhedged or underhedged, and then just stick with it for a fairly long period of time, despite businesses coming and telling you maybe that's not the right strategy, because you can't look at it in the short term.
Yeah, it evens out in the long run. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Great. So, Mukti, how has been the business post COVID-19? I mean, you were part of one of the largest FMCG player in the country, and you might be feeling the nerves and the pulse of the market. What are the opportunities and challenges that you are looking at?
So they say that you should never let a crisis go waste. And I think a situation like a COVID pandemic actually forces you to take a hard look at yourself, figure and cut out those inefficiencies, because you just don't have time, bandwidth, and can't bear the cost of those.
Sure.
So the pandemic has in fact caused a tectonic shifts in our lives, right? It's forced us to take notice of what's important and recalibrate the strategy to deliver what's important. So, as an organization, we have reduced complexity at various levels. We cut down the number of SKUs significantly in order to maximize production. We also mobilized reverse logistics in some cases to make sure our products can be transported. And we struck various partnerships which were unheard of to increase our availability of products to consumers. Also looked at innovative ways to solve problems and challenges that were thrown at us. Well, now it really is a test of time which changes will stick, but I would really like some of these beneficial changes of reduction in complexity, more importantly, to stick even when the pandemic is much behind us.
Sure. Great. Okay, Mukti, now this is a personal question.
Sure.
Share one of the most extreme life-changing experience and how your professional and personal life evolved post that. It could be a financial loss, it could be a personal health emergency, or a relationship fallacy, anything which helped you to push the reset button.
So see, I don't need to look far behind, right? I mean, I think COVID pandemic is one of the most life-changing situations, honestly, for me personally, professionally, every which way I look at it. There's a lot going inside the house as well as, inside the organization, and, definitely outside the organization as well. All the usual things like cash flow planning, liquidity management, risk management, things we really, honestly took for granted. They existed, and, we were just going through the hoops. They all became tricky to plan, manage, and deliver. And amidst all these that were going on, the country was in lockdown. We were closing large acquisitions. So GSK Consumer acquisition, we closed on 1st of April. Then we announced another acquisition, and then, we closed that amidst, again, lockdown. So it was definitely very demanding few months, and there were no precedents, right? So it just made us realize importance of scenario planning. That is, how important worst case scenario is. Need to actually plan for it, and need to see, need to really think through some of those variables which you really took for granted. So, this was really really the time that, it sort of forced us to look at and introspect ourselves. And, HUL is a very compassionate organization. Unilever is actually a very compassionate organization, and HUL, takes from that culture. But our global CHRO said a very interesting thing. It struck a chord with me. She said, we might be in the same battle in terms of, say, COVID pandemic, but our struggles are very different. And it's really true. We are all in the pandemic, but your challenges are very different from mine, and so on and so forth, right? And it's extremely important to be mindful and compassionate of that. And then take this time to dig deeper and introspect. And I certainly feel, I would emerge out of this crisis stronger and more connected with my team, with the rest of the world. And, a new normal will emerge, which would change the way we do business and also live our lives.
Sure. So any one thing that you felt in this crisis, which you used to miss earlier, or which you just opened your eyes? One thing.
Absolutely. I think it's a simple thing, like, just a conversation with a friend or a cup of coffee or a colleague with, just casually chatting. I think we took all those things for granted. But there was such immense amount of value in those conversations. I think I certainly miss that aspect.
Correct, correct. I think that's one thing that all my friends also say, that conversation with friends, with lots of friends, is what the people are missing the most in this pandemic. The rest, I think everybody is very peaceful, but then the socializing part is, of course, something
Absolutely.
everybody is missing in this situation. So, you have been into advising startups and in your earlier role. So, would you like to share any instance in terms of where you felt that a major idea that you gave became a very big game changer for the startup or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, several times, right? I mean, I always felt my ideas were breakthrough, but no, honestly, there was this food startup that I was working with, and they were looking to raise capital, and in one particular case, when they were thinking through their strategy, and the issue with promoters, and this is what makes them promoters and entrepreneurs, is that they want to do a lot more in a very short amount of time rather than getting one thing right. So in this particular case also, the promoter wanted to launch 10, 12 SKUs of products, very different from each other. And the idea was that at least I am building a distribution setup, let me take advantage of that. But when he went out trying to raise capital, he realized that while diversification is important, I think the big realization that he had, which was something I was telling him from the beginning, was that you need to build scale at least in one particular thing before you venture out and do 10 other things. And that is something I have seen entrepreneurs get into the fallacy of doing. So they want to do much more, but more is less is more, and that's what people need to realize, that you need to do one thing right and then get on to other things. And I guess the challenge for entrepreneurs always is they want to throw too many darts and hoping one will stick. But I would rather flip it and say that throw only one dart which you have and put everything behind it, and it will stick. So I guess that's the big learning.
That's a very important message. I mean, don't become jack of all trades. Focus on one thing and just make sure that you watch it carefully. Great. So, Mukti, how are you as a person? What are your three rituals for the day? And it could be mentally, spiritually, or in terms of fitness. What's the kind
Sure.
of three rituals?
Well, there are more rituals than three, but so I exercise and meditate every day. I love to spend time with my husband and play with my kids. And these are the things that actually recharge me. Honestly, very important for me to unwind this way. So I really miss these things when I travel. And during these times of lockdown, I'm able to do all of these, and I'm really happy because of that. And as a person, I'm a fun loving person, but I have high work ethics, so work does come first in most cases. And I like my team to be that way as well. So that's something I always make sure that we deliver first before we celebrate.
So what is that one fact about you that people don't know?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things people don't know, but I think one thing that I really enjoy doing, and it's really silly, is that I love to play hide and seek with my kids, right? And every day after work, I try and play hide and seek with them, and sometimes it's indoor cricket, sometimes it's badminton with their funny small equipments. But that's something that that really helps me recharge, unwind, and very important for me to do every day.
No, it's not silly at all, because I do the same with my two kids. And they are 8 and 4, and I think I really enjoy that time with them. And I think it's sometimes we should also become kids with them, and that's the time the main innovation happens in life. So,
Yeah,
so
no, their perspective of looking at things completely enriches me, honestly. So I
correct,
also have a
correct,
4 and 8 year old.
correct, correct. Uh, uh, Mukti, there'll be a lot of young treasurers or people who would be looking this as a field of expertise. what advice would you like to give them so that if they see themselves 10 years going forward, they are able to get into a space where they can do justice to the profession?
So I think, one of the key things is, first of all, know the limits of your knowledge, right? You'll obviously build a good knowledge base and you'll read and you'll do also all things possible, but it's not humanly possible to know everything in the world. So know the limits of your knowledge and keep learning. So have the humility to say, I don't know and I want to know. And this is an important attribute actually, which helps people learn and grow. And when I'm thinking of an individual, I think an attitude to deliver, an attitude to learn, and the drive that a person has are, they almost define you as a person, honestly, regardless of where you started out from, right? So I think these are the things I will say. Also, just be curious, and question everything.
Sure. In terms of attitude, would you like to elaborate that in case when you are hiring someone in your team, what are the two attributes that you would focus on
So I think
apart from
yeah,
knowledge?
sure. See, I think knowledge and intelligence, I think, is given if you're coming from a good business school or you have, a professional qualification under your belt. So, you definitely have to be smart to get there, right? But what I mean by attitude is, rather than becoming a victim of the situation, saying that I'll take charge of this and I will deliver, right? Set up a big, hairy, audacious goal for yourself and try and deliver it, right? And then continuously better it. So that's something that comes from within, right? People can motivate you externally, but I think it has to come from within. So those two things are extremely important for me when I'm looking at hiring.
Sure. Great, Mukti. So thank you so much, Mukti, for taking out time. It was really very interesting to talk to you, and we could love to. We had a lot of uh, uh, talks on your treasury and how you has been managing the Unilever treasury and some of your practices, and it has been very enriching for everyone who have been listening to you. So thank you once again to take out time, and look forward to have you sometime on face to face in one of the Treasury Elite seminars which we have in Bombay. So thank you once again. Thank you.